Welcome to highlights from the first round of the Esports WTCR Championship of 2023 as we took to the starting grid at the Nordschleife and the race was underway. A good start from our pole sitter, but a better start from Gergo Bowdy, who was taking it 3 wide on the race down towards the first corner, getting to the inside of Juan Manuel Gomez and Jack Keithley. The move, though, going down to the first corner would not work out for Gergo Bowdy, and Gomez was able to hang on. Keithley would take it side by side up into the arena section, and meanwhile Pliska had a great view of everything happening ahead. Alessandro Ottaviani down the inside of David Noj to try and take over that position, but as they left the arena section, the position would switch back to the way of the Hungarian. Whilst there was one Dur Esports driver at the front of the field, being Ben Spanky, 2 of them lay at the back end of the top 10. Tim Yarshaw and Florian Haas are trying to hold off the charges of our Naj competition. Zanan Pinsesh and Max Pfeiffer behind for Dur Esports. Gomez, though, was trying to apply pressure to Banky at the front of the field, heading through Schwedenkreuz up towards Arenberg. He was all over the rear end, really applying that pressure. The first of the big casualties over the top end, Ilya Drovasekov under pressure from Zoltan Suti having a spin before we got to Ardnar Forst. And then on the Duttinger for the first time, it was the snake beginning. Going one way, then back the other, but Gomez, whilst having the overspeed, decided not to pass at the end of the first lap and allowed Banky to hang on to the race lead. Keithley was having to fend off the charges of Gergo Bowdy, though, for the final spot in the podium positions, and Gianmarco Fiducci was closing into the fight. Meanwhile, down towards the back end of the top 10, the battle for 11th position as Pinsesh was trying to get himself inside the top 10 by getting past Yarshall. But with all the pressure on his shoulders from Pfeiffer, he would actually lose out 11th position, dropping down to 12th and giving Dur Esports the full control over the reverse grid spot. Barner, though, with a super move down the inside, going through Schwedenkreuz to the inside of Arenberg. An absolutely sensational pass from the Hungarian who failed in qualifying but was moving forward in the race. On board with Jack Keithley, first position for him to make up, going up into second as Gomez was trying to make his way through into the race lead. And then this superb move down into the first corner. Jack Keithley catching Ben Banky out and taking over the race lead, fending off the charges of Gomez. But Banky was firing back, trying to get himself back into the race lead before they got onto the Nordschleife, heading round the Grand Prix section. There was contact between Bowdy, Gianmarco Fiducci and Gomez behind. Meanwhile, Keithley was making his way around the outside, inside, outside. They were switching all of the time as best they could, and Jack Keithley would take over the race lead. And that, at the end of the third lap, would be victory for Keithley in the first race of the season. On to the second race, and the top 10 would be reversed. Yarshall starting from pole position ahead of his teammate Florian Haas, and the race down towards the first corner would see a good launch from the majority of the top 10. They're all trying to funnel their way through and find their pathway into their positions, getting their way single file. Gianmarco Fiducci having to halt the charges of champion Gergo Bowdy as they head through the arena section. Alessandro Ottaviani continuing to battle it out with David Noj. The battle would continue all the way down into the hairpin, but the door was open potentially for his teammate to come through. As soon as Gianmarco Fiducci had the look, Alessandro Ottaviani opened the corner slightly just to try and let him through and was able to fend off the charges of Gergo Bowdy behind. At the top of the field, though, there was a switch between the teammates. Tim Yarshall pulling over to one side to allow Florian Haas to take over the race lead. And as they head onto the Nordschleife, there was plenty of battles. It was Gergo Bowdy still trying to find his way past Alessandro Ottaviani, holding up this enormous train that Ottaviani was building behind him. Noj would have a mistake, allowing Gianmarco Fiducci to have a look going through Ardnar Forst, but the Hungarian was able to hold off the Italian, at least for now. And then there was this move from Gergo Bowdy, incredibly brave to get to the inside of Alessandro Ottaviani on the race up towards Bravery Corner. Absolutely superb stuff as Jack Keithley was sent up the carousel courtesy of Gomez. Meanwhile, Pliska was applying the pressure to Tim Yarshall, who was really feeling it through the third and final sector on the Nordschleife. Big moments, big mistakes, and a costly one for Yarshall, which would drop him back down to third position. Meanwhile, Pliska had caught up to Haase, and coming down to Tiergarten, he was through. Pliska to the race lead, and Fordzilla at the front. Noj was on the attack, trying to charge his way past a struggling Yarshall. With a costly mistake through Mutkurva, Yarshall would come back through. Gianmarco Fiducci would fancy his opportunity, but when Fiducci wasn't able to get through, it was Gergo Bowdy making his attempt. The two Dura Esports drivers would come together in a bit of a bump draft trying to close back up to Pliszka. Meanwhile, Mirror Esports would finally switch over courtesy of a mistake from David Noj. Bowdy through. Meanwhile, Gianmarco Fiducci on the final lap of the race was trying to get past Yarshall. Contact between the two. Somehow Yarshall saves it. Fiducci through into third. Bowdy almost through, up into fourth. And at the front, miles away from all of that, was Petr Pliszka taking a very well-deserved victory in the second race of the season.